Thank you very much. What a nice way to start the morning. Good morning. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal, religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or, as we say in short, create community, find meaning, and work for justice. We're glad to have you with us this morning. Ours is a very welcoming congregation, and we appreciate your unique experiences, backgrounds, beliefs, and lifestyles. And if you're one of our long-term members, or if you've been with us for a short time, or if you're joining us today for the very first time, we're so glad you're with us. And we're also very grateful for those who are streaming with us today, so thank you for joining us as well. We have a little change in the service today. Our guest speaker was not available. We don't know what happened to her yet until we find out. Hopefully she is fine. But so the service today will be me. I'm not sure I needed that, but okay. We do have a couple of announcements this morning. First of all, today is the kickoff of this year's community auction. The auction is our biggest fundraiser of the year, so we encourage you all to participate. The auction is being held online this year, and you can bid on and buy a variety of items donated by our own church members. You can visit our website or look for an email from the church with a link for the auction. We invite everyone to join in the auction. All of our viewers watching online as well are able to see what is available. For those that are in the sanctuary, you'll find posted on the back walls and the side walls there the list of auction items, and you can use your cell phone to scan the QR code to sign up for them. So please take a look at those after the service here. Second, we're looking for individuals to join our worship team. The worship leader role is a role that is a key role within our church, and one which allows you as an individual an opportunity to share your experiences and your wisdom with the congregation. It's a voluntary role, and your commitment would be based upon your availability, usually maybe once every 1 or 2 months. I do want to take a moment to thank those who have retired from our worship leader team. Betsy Lawrence and Catherine D. Levine both have retired as worship leaders. But at the same time, I want to thank also those who are participating as worship leaders today. Lisa Conger, Barb Nelson, Richard Steele, Karen Dorn Steele, Shane Gronholtz, Candace Schmidt, and Ann Wenger. So thank you very much for your help. So if you're interested in joining our team, please see me after the service, or you can email me or call me. My contact information is in the directory. And with that, I encourage you to stay after the service for our fall dessert potluck. I see goodies piling up on the table back there, so looking forward to that afterwards. Now, please take a few moments to say hello to those you have met before, and for those you have not met, say welcome them as well. Thank you. We'll have more time for conversation and good coffee and desserts after the service. So we now turn from our informal greeting to one another to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, the symbol of our unity and solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost and cast a healthy shadow of doubt where it has been found. For my opening reflection today, I'm going to share the words of Dean Koontz. All human lives are so profoundly and intricately entwined, those dead, those living, and those generations yet to come, that the fate of all is the fate of each, and the hope of humanity rests in every heart and in every pair of hands.
Well, our first in-service hymn this morning is called This Old World. It's actually a very famous American folk tune, but we don't necessarily sing it often here, so we're going to have Maura play it through for you before we sing it. So please rise as you're willing and able to sing This Old World, number 315.
We now kindle our candles of care. Each time we gather as a congregation, there are those who are with us in our minds and our hearts, and who we want to wrap in our love and care. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing others who are here and here in our hearts and minds this morning. You're welcome to name them out loud if you wish. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community of compassion. So we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
Thank you, Maura. This time I'd love to invite any children to come forward for our Time for All Ages. And while they're making their way up front, I have a couple of announcements. As Gordon mentioned, today is our fall harvest dessert potluck. And on the tables, you will see some ornamental cabbage because the garden store was out of mums, but we think the cabbage looks pretty cool. And those are to be taken home by our amazing religious education volunteers who've stepped up over the last few weeks as we've made the ask for more volunteers. And those volunteers are Candace Schmidt, Katie Willard, Dick and Judy Gammon, Marina Ladich, Peggy Eckloff, Sarah Darcy, Sunny Cook, and Lynn Janishian. And Lynn gets a special thank you, extra special thank you, because she and her husband have spent the last 2.5 weeks building the playground that you all so generously funded. So kids, did you hear that? The playground is ready. And it's a sunny day, so I'm glad you've got some coats, because I think we'll be able to go check it out. All right? While we're talking about community potluck things, I also wanted to let you know that November 13th will be an intergenerational service, followed by our second annual Thanksgiving potluck. So mark your calendars, it will be here before you know it. And now, a story about people eating. I guess that's the theme of this Time for All Ages segment. Charlie, come back. Come here. Yeah. This is a UU retelling of the story of Jesus and the loaves and fishes, written by Sophia Lyon-Foss, who's a renowned religious education expert in the UU tradition. Jesus had not been speaking long, at least so it had seemed with all who were there, yet the day was now almost wholly spent. As the afternoon shadows crept over the hillside, the air had begun to chill. 2 of his disciples stepped up to Jesus and said, "Send the crowds away so that they can go into town before it's too late, so that they can buy some food for themselves." But Jesus answered, "Is there any need for them to go away? Can we just give them food here?" Philip answered in amazement, "What, shall we go and buy 200 shillings worth of bread to give them to eat?" Jesus asked, "How many loaves are there here among us?" A little boy, overhearing Jesus' question, stepped forward. "I have 5 loaves and 2 fishes. You can divide them." Jesus smiled and beckoned the boy to come nearer, and he stood with uplifted arms and in a strong voice spoke a prayer of thankfulness to God. For a few moments afterwards, there was complete silence. Men and women looked wonderingly at each other as if to say, "What, these few loaves and fishes can feed all these people?" But others in the crowd began to bring out their own baskets and bags, and all who had shared generously with those who had not. Before long, everyone had eaten heartily, and still there was food left over. The crowd seemed refreshed and lighter in spirits as their friendliness grew. And now join me in singing the children out. Kids, we're going to stop at the main table so that we can take our food bank food out to the little free pantry so that we can share with others, just like the little boy in our story. All right.
We are ad-libbing today, that's for sure. Okay, as we move into a time of meditation, find a comfortable position, close your eyes, put your feet on the floor, take a deep breath in, breathe out. Through it all, we attempt to bring balance to the present moment understanding that in patience lies wisdom, knowing that what will come next will be determined in large measure by how we are now. This is helpful to keep in mind when we get impatient in our meditation, or when we get frustrated, impatient, and angry in our lives. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Chings asks this of us: do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? For my reading today, I'm sharing the words of Christina Feldman. Compassion doesn't always call for grand or heroic gestures. It asks you to find in your heart the simple but profound willingness to be present, with a commitment to end sorrow and contribute to the well-being and ease of all beings. A word of kindness, a loving touch, a patient presence, a willingness to step beyond your fears and reactions are all gestures of compassion that can transform a moment of fear and pain. Aligning yourself with compassion, you are learning to listen to the cries of the world. Compassion grows out of having to deal with tragedy, loss, suffering, and pain. Although our usual strategy is to run from these disagreeable situations, it is better to work with them as they surface in our experiences. Daily life presents us with innumerable occasions and people who make us uncomfortable. Instead of closing down, manifest the compassion within us by opening our hearts.
I wanted to say a couple of words before the choir sings their main piece today. It is an Arapaho tune. We circle around. It's been out in the general song book of the world for some time now. We are singing this today in honor of the street name change that happened out here. Finally, yes. And we are now on Wistock's Way. And for those of you that may not remember who Wistock's was, she was the wife of a Native American chief in this area. The church is located on ground that was first Native American property and then the property of Fort Wright, which is right over here. And of course, this street used to be named of George Wright, who was the commanding officer of that fort. But this man did horrible atrocities to the native population here. And among them, two things that come to mind for me. The Native Americans counted their wealth and with their horses. And this man saw to it that 700 horses were slaughtered and dumped into the Spokane River. So, of course, wiping out the tribe's prosperity and, of course, their transportation and all the other things that were happening with their horses. The other atrocity, of course, was we call it Hangman Creek, a little south of here. Well, that was because this was supposed to be a peace treaty meeting with the chiefs, and they were tricked, and many hanged there. Wistock's husband among them. And she stood up and protested at the time and had to run for her life. But I'm so glad that we're finally honoring her with our street name. So we will sing for you. We circle around.
Thank you. That was very beautiful. A soul, excuse me. This may be fun. A soul, Aristotle says, is the actuality of a body that has life. A physical body where life means the capacity of self-sustenance, growth, and reproduction. If one regards a living substance as a composite of matter and form, then the soul is the form of a natural, or as Aristotle sometimes says, an organic body. According to the dictionary, Tom Rapsa says, soul is a person's moral or emotional nature, their sense of identity. But in reality, we know it's something that's indefinable. Some ideas of the soul envision it as being ephemeral. Others understand the soul as being the essence of who we are. A soul can't be seen or touched. It can only be perceived within. And even then, its presence is often fleeting. Rapsa says our soul is located in a place so deep inside us, it can often be forgotten as we go about our busy lives. Then, in a quiet moment, or when we are immersed in or exposed to certain activities, the soul surprises us and makes itself known. This moment can come to life by a book we are reading, or by a piece of music we are listening to, or even by a small act of kindness that catches us off guard. It can be awoken by something as simple as watering our houseplants, or looking out the window on a winter's day and seeing a woodpecker land on the branch of a slumbering tree. Is living a soulful life at odds with our disposable society? It is the opposite of reality TV programs and manufactured pop music and gossipy discourse. The things that touch the soul are often deeper and have more meaning. This may involve retreating from the world as much as participating in it. Thomas More says the world is changing so fast that some days I feel dizzy from it. And religion is changing in ways we could not have predicted years ago. The question is, can or should we live without it? Or should we rethink what religion is all about? Religion is not only changing, in many ways it is disappearing, going the way of the bookstore, printed newspapers, and landlines. His book, A Religion of One's Own, focuses on reimagining religion. Do we ever appreciate or even understand how deeply changes in science, technology, or culture affect us? While science tries to answer all your questions and technology tries to make life more livable, we can still get depressed or anxious. Purpose and meaning may be absent from your life, whether you like it or not. You have a soul that complains when you neglect it, and that soul needs religion. When you meet a person with soul, you will get the feeling that she has really lived, that she has a strong personality. Soul is the invisible, mysterious, and softly radiant element that infuses your being and makes you human. Gives you a sense of meaning, feeling, connections, and depth. Have you met someone that you could just sense had soul? You sense the glow about them, could feel that they are alive and present, that they are a real person. Without soul, we are dead. There is no value or real substance, no possibility for love and care, no heart and no real power or tenderness. And life without soul may be shallow and metallic, not really touching each other and not engaging with the world. One may feel a hollow emptiness and a vague sense of being lost. Bringing soul to everything we do is important, and to do so, we need a vivid sense of the sacred of religion. Unitarian Universalism offers avenues of soul searching through our third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregation, and our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, as well as our first source, direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. And our sixth source, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. When we speak of care of the soul, we really are addressing self-care as it pertains to the world in which we must engage. Care of the soul, of mind, of body, and of spirit. Self-care is really soul care. Our soul needs certain things: a sense of home, deep friendship and casual friendliness, a poetic and metaphorical appreciation for words and images, attention to night dreams, the fine arts, an intimate relationship with the natural world, acquaintance with animals, memory in the form of storytelling or keeping old buildings and objects that have meaning. We can do things to care for the soul, such as reconciling our sexuality and spirituality, caring for children, finding work that we love, incorporating play and fun in everything we do, and dealing effectively with loss and failure and inadequacies. All of this is soul work, but we also must address our spirit. The difference between soul and spirit is important to understand. Your spirit directs your attention to the cosmos and the planets, to huge ideas and vast adventures, to prayer and meditation and other spiritual practices, to a worldwide view and a philosophy of life. Your spirit expands heart and mind and gives you vision and courage, and eventually leaves you with a strong sense of meaning and purpose. Your soul is more intimate, deep and concrete. You care for your soul by keeping up your house, learning how to cook. Lynn wants me to do that someday. Playing sports or games, being around children, getting to know and love the region where you live. Your soul allows you to become attached to the world, which is kind of love. When the soul stirs, you feel things, both love and anger. And you have strong desires and even fears. You live life fully instead of skirting it with the intellectualism or excessive moralistic worries. Our spirit inspires while our soul delves deep into the complexities of an issue. My spirit likes to have a planning meeting, and my soul likes to have a long and deep conversation. My spirit sets goals while my soul plods along, going deeper all the way. My spirit prefers detachment, while my soul sinks into its attachments to places, people, and home. UU Minister A. Powell Davies reminds us that the purpose of life is to grow a soul, and that this is the goal of spiritual growth. Care of self and care of soul begins with self-compassion. A person must love herself or himself to make self-care a priority. It is compassion that motivates a person to care for themselves and for another person. Care of the soul is important work. It is at the heart of self-care, and without it, we are diminished in many ways. M. Scott Peck wrote, "Life is difficult, and love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. The care of the soul is also self-love, not as narcissism, but as a means to greater empathy. And from this point of view, care of the soul is a means of both deepening connections and caring for community. In his book, Care of the Soul, A Guide for Cultivating Depth and Sacredness in Everyday Life, Thomas More states, "To the soul, memory is more important than planning, art more compelling than reason, and love more fulfilling than understanding. The most minute details and the most ordinary activities carried out with mindfulness and art have an effect far beyond their apparent insignificance." More continues by saying, "Just as the mind digests ideas and produces intelligence, the soul feeds on life and digests it, creating wisdom and character out of experience. This wisdom and character is crucial for deepening connections and the spirituality that has been associated with the rise of interest in the soul." It is important to recognize that the nature of the soul is difficult to map. If maps of the soul eliminate mystery, they also eliminate the soul. We need to prepare for vague definitions and hazy boundaries. Spirit and mystery are closely connected. Not everything that is mysterious is spiritual, while the genuine spiritual always retains an element of mystery. For this reason, maps of the soul should not be expected to eliminate the mystery that is inevitably a part of the psycho-spiritual nature of persons. Understanding the soul and its care requires exploration of the inner world of persons. There is nothing neutral about the soul, More says. It is the seat and the source of life. Either way, we respond to what the soul presents in its fantasies and desires, or we suffer from this neglect of ourselves. The power of the soul can hurl a person into ecstasy or into depression. It can be creative or destructive, gentle or aggressive. Power incubates within the soul and then makes its influential move into life as the expression of soul. If there is no soulfulness, then there is no true power. And if there is no power, then there can be no true soulfulness. So, how does our soul grow? Annis Nin said it best: "We do not grow absolutely chronologically. We grow sometimes in one dimension and not in another, unevenly. We grow partially. We are mature in one realm, childish in another. The past, present, and future mingle and pull us backward, forward, or fix us in the present." The soul is a messy thing for Unitarian Universalists. We are burdened by whatever childhood definitions or images of soul that were imposed upon us during early religious education, or that we learned through osmosis. We are handicapped by a vacuum of contemporary reflection on the soul by any scholars, theologians, or scientists that we trust, precisely because the word itself carries so much baggage. The burden of childhood definition we carry when it comes to the word soul is in the speculation about whether there is a material entity that is the essence of life. Excuse me. Some believers in the soul aren't interested in proving that a soul has a material existence. They may in fact believe that the soul is a non-material entity that does exist and that leaves the body upon death and goes on to heaven or hell. Some believers in the soul aren't sure about the heaven or hell part and don't want to restrict the soul to humans or even to conscious beings. They see the soul as the life spark that comes from God and animates all life. Some don't believe in the soul at all, except as a superstition or a metaphor from literature and poetry. It is to poetry that we will often first turn in any meditation towards a common understanding of the soul. Mary Oliver captures all the contradictions and ambiguities inherent in the word soul in her poem, Some Questions You Might Ask. Is the soul solid like iron? Or is it tender and breakable, like the wings of a moth and the beak of an owl? Who has it and who doesn't? I keep looking around me. The face of the moose is as sad as the face of Jesus. The swan opens her white wings slowly. In the fall, the black bear carries leaves into the darkness. One question leads to another. Does it have a shape, like an iceberg? Like the eye of a hummingbird? Does it have one lung, like the snake and the scallop? Why should I have it and not the anteater who loves her children? Why should I have it and not the camel? Come to think of it, what about the maple trees? What about the blue iris? What about all the little stones sitting alone in the moonlight? What about roses and lemons and their shining leaves? What about the grass? Perhaps our conversation about the soul should be like that. Why speculate about something that can't be proven? And even if somehow we could obtain the key to the box of knowledge that would tell us everything about the soul, maybe it would be better to just leave it buried and unopened. Soul is not a thing, says Moore, but a quality or dimension of experiencing life and ourselves. It has to do with depth, value, relatedness, heart, and personal substance. He did not use the word here as an object of religious belief or as something to do with immorality. He is talking about something very different from a metaphysical entity, and he uses a psychotherapist's definition of the soul inspired by Jungian psychology, mythology, and the arts. And he goes on to say, care of our soul begins with observance of how the soul manifests itself and how it operates. We can't care for our soul unless we are familiar with its ways. Observance is a word from ritual and religion, and it means to watch out for, but also to honor and keep, as in the observance of a holiday. The serve in observance originally referred to tending sheep. Observing the soul, we keep an eye on its sheep, on whatever is wandering and grazing, the latest addiction, a striking dream, or a troubling mood. Care of the soul, then, is an observance and an honoring of the signposts, the scenery, the obstacles and companions of your inner journey. Sounds simple enough, so why use the word soul? Soul is a word in the English language that describes a meeting place, a crossroads, where we encounter so much at once: the world around us, the conscious and unconscious individuals that surround us, the history that we pull behind us, and the aspirations and values that we envision in front of us. Our soul certainly does exist while we live. There is no life without soul, and when we die, our souls disappear. Where they go is the big mystery. Our soul teaches us to endure. It is part courage and part wisdom that grows from life experience. from unearned and unexplainable suffering. It is something that we sense that is either lost or changed when we are in the presence of death, and something that helps us to choose to live in the face of it. Sometimes it's a crisis, a profound loss, or a dramatic change in circumstance that puts us squarely at a crossroads where soul is all we have. There's a shepherd. As he continues to live his life on the farm after the loss of his wife, alone with his sheep, he sums up what he has learned about soul. I know 3 ways to see the soul, he thinks to himself, though not with the eyes. Each way is a mode of loving vision. One way to see the soul is passion, and a second way is parenthood, and a third way is in husbandry. In the passion of his love for his wife and in their role together as parents, and in the daily caring for all the outward things that sustain his sheep and his farm, this shepherd feels he understands all that he can know about soul. All of these insights are echoed in Moore's understanding of what constitutes soul, but Moore adds one more way of seeing the soul, which is a key we can use each and every day to open that mysterious box we have buried in our psychic backyard. Tradition teaches that soul lies midway between understanding and unconsciousness, and that its instrument is neither the mind nor the body, but imagination, which is the 4th way of seeing the soul. To say that imagination is the key to understanding your soul, however, is not to concede that the soul is less than real. If we are truly observant and honoring of the daily messages that our souls send us, and if we can greet these messages with imagination rather than literalism, we find that our soul becomes a true companion, easing our passage through this very real and very difficult world. What are these daily messages of the soul? Ironically, many of them are symptoms, physical and emotional signals that we usually try to suppress or ignore, or simply wait out until they go away. People experience symptoms that they don't understand and that they want to go away. And when we have the good sense to invite people through acts of imagination to befriend rather than antagonize their symptoms, they may not want to hear it. To suggest that a painful symptom or a family tragedy or a difficult emotional setback might also be a vehicle for knowing the soul sounds too pat, too superficial. But it is just the opposite. One of the most puzzling ideas that Carl Jung ever put forward in his writings was this. He said, "The soul is for the most part outside the body." This sounds so extraordinary because all our usual thinking about the word soul associates it with the mind and locates it inside the body. To say that the soul is mostly outside the body is to connect the soul with our actions in the world in an essential way. Your soul feeds on the life around it, Jung says. To the soul, the ordinary is sacred, and the everyday is the primary source of religion. For this reason, any community that is concerned with soul must recognize the connection between soul, daily life, and spirituality. This includes our very own UU community. The soul needs a vivid spiritual life that keeps us connected to the outside world. A spiritual life that does not smother the soul in rote that is trying to pass for a meaningful ritual. a spiritual life that offers an articulated worldview and a sense of relatedness to the whole, and a spiritual life that balances a sense of transcendence with the traditions and values that have been part of a family for generations. This is how soul and church are connected. Everybody has a soul, but not everyone knows how to touch and heal and nurture the soul within their lives. Care of the soul can be encouraged by the recovery and the sustenance of a formal religious tradition. The practices of preparation for and observance of the signals of the soul are part of what a religious tradition is all about. The opportunities that church creates for conversation and mutual support in groups, small and large, formal and informal, helps us develop the courage and the language to talk about soul. It is both a great gift and a great curse of many Unitarian Universalists to be more comfortable with the intellectual path of religious understanding versus a deep dive into soulful expression. Yet all of us know that our lives, our values, our sense of being at home in the world have been created not only by our intellectual encounter with the world, but by our experiences of joy at connectedness, of anger at injustice, and of wonder at overwhelming beauty, experiences that can all be wordless and soulful. One of my many business trips, I had the opportunity to visit the Grand Canyon. This was a solo journey, and one morning I awoke very early and had the whole canyon to myself, so to speak. I was standing at one of the overlooks on the south side of the canyon, completely alone as dawn broke, and I was filled with the stillness, the colors, the grandeur, the expansive natural beauty of that moment. And it fed my soul. That day is forever etched in my mind. Sorry. Soul is a place where all external experiences meet together with our ideas and our collective unconscious in order to prepare us for the internal spiritual feast that is one of life's greatest gifts. How are you caring for your soul today? Thank you.
Well, we're going to sing one of my favorite hymns. It's called Wake Now My Senses, and to me it covers all the bases and the soul of Unitarian Universalism. Please rise as you're willing and able to sing this song with me. It's an old Irish tune. It's easy to sing.
Take his own neighbor, both straight.
As we depart today, I want to share these closing words from Reverend Steve Crump. That which is worthy of doing, create with your hands. That which is worthy of repeating, speak with a clear voice. That which is worthy of remembering, hold in your hearts. And that which is worthy of living, go and live it now. Amen. Blessed be. Salaam alaikum. Shalom.